Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Park Lane Podcast, episode number 88, sponsored by our good friends at Manscaped. Go ahead and check out manscaped.com, order anything off their website, and use the code ParkLane20 to get 20% off plus free shipping. Yes, it still works because I checked it the other day to double check to make sure that our code was still valid. So go over, as I said, ParkLane20, get 20% off plus free shipping for your manscaping needs. Anyway, I feel like I need a deep breath after what's happened tonight. And we will go over the England game because it literally has just finished. But I'm joined by two brilliant co-hosts tonight. Callum, how are you, mate?
120 minutes of my life I'm never getting back, mate. So I'm definitely was happy to have a cigarette after that. Let's put it that way.
Wesley, looks like you're in having a press conference at this moment in time.
Yeah, I feel like it, to be fair. But no, I think I'm probably the same as everybody else and a little bit relieved. I know England have made it really, really difficult for everybody throughout the Euros so far. So yeah, I think it's a massive sense of relief that we've managed to get the job done tonight, just. But yeah, looking forward to dissecting it and some other bits and pieces as well.
Yeah, exactly. Absolute chaos at 5-7 when I'm planning on being live on the show, and then Jude Bellingham comes and sticks a bicycle kick in the back of the net. And we've got to reschedule everything. So thanks to everyone that have joined us. Shout out a few people. So Evo Blogs said evening all. Johnny said, hey, have you moved? Yes, we moved because of the England game. Jay has said hello to everybody apart from us. Kieran is in the chat, so hi Kieran, hope you're all right. And David Clark, I started already. There's only one Ramsey that'd be good enough to play for Spurs, and that's Alf Ramsey, not this young pretender from Aston Villa. Wow, it's a good starter because we'll definitely get onto that talking point in a little bit. But let's dissect this England game a little bit. Like, we're going to go off topic and talk slightly about England, but I'm going to come to you first, Wes, because I was thinking about you all game, really, because you're like the tactical guy in this group. You're the football coach. You know what you're talking about. And I just don't understand how we, as an England team, cannot do anything when the team presses us. Like when we have the ball, and they were set up quite simply of like a front one or two, and then a midfield four, and they just sat so high that we couldn't do anything to counteract that. Like, what do you do? Because clearly Gareth Southgate knows what he's doing, but what do you do in that scenario to like get out of it easily?
Yeah, well, I think firstly, if I'm the tactical knowledge doesn't say much, and if I know what I'm talking about, it doesn't say much for anybody else, I think. But yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously when you hit that real sort of like elite level in sport, you have people that do some real hard work and tough work, and I almost feel for these guys. So these are like your analysts, your performance analysts. So you would have a team of people that would be, watching clips and clipping other bits and pieces for different opposition. So I think the turnaround for the analysts sometimes can be like ridiculously quick. Having said that, I think there was probably, a situation, a scenario where we were likely to know who we were going to play. But I think, from an analyst point of view, you're looking at it and going, well, we're doing all our prep for Holland, and then all of a sudden things change last minute. So all that prep and all those clips we got for Holland now going to go in the bin, and we've spent about 6-8 hours working on that. Now we've got to do the same, if not more, for Slovakia. So that, shout out to those guys, because like I say, the turnaround has to be really, really quick. But yeah, it just seems really strange at the moment that England, despite the fact we've got players who can handle the ball and take the ball in really tight and difficult situations, doesn't seem that way on the pitch. Rice has looked off it a lot. Mainu did okay, I think, today, but you could see his legs were going. You've got like other players, like I look at someone like John Stones, and he's making errors. Kyle Walker, usually so comfortable on the ball, giving it away so cheaply. Foden, another one. So yeah, it just seems really strange that we don't have. It feels like, from a fan point of view, watching, that we don't seem to have any plan and idea of what we're doing on and off the ball, which is really strange because I think everybody would know that there is a lot of work that would have been done on how England set up tactically in possession and out of possession. So yeah, it just seems a really, really strange one at the moment, and it feels like Southgate's almost trying to fit the best players to then create the best team, but the best players don't always make the best team, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's really difficult because it seemed like today, Callum, every single pass was going behind to the player's leg that's closest to their own goal, if that makes sense. When you're stood, especially the wingers, when they're stood side on and the ball gets played behind them every single time. In midfield, the ball gets played behind the player every single time. That's not taught by Gareth Southgate. That's just poor passing from the England players, from what I can see. But every time, Kyle Walker was probably the most infuriating player for me in this game, because every time he got the ball and he opened his body up to pass it to Saka, he'd do a fake pass and then stop and then go the opposite direction. But it seemed like every time we could try and get past the ball into any space, we seemed to turn around and pass it back into the traffic every time. What did you make of the game?
It's such a difficult one because there's so many players that shouldn't be playing, in my opinion, on that team sheet, to be honest, mate. Trippier should have been nowhere near playing as a left back. He was one of the most culpable for playing constantly, getting it, playing backwards, playing into traffic or playing back. But no, Walker was definitely the most infuriating. Saka would make a run, make all this space, and we'd end up passing it back into Mainu or Rice, and then they'd recycle it to Stones, and then it'd go to Pickford, and then it'd be with Gahey, then it'd go to Trippier, we'd get to the halfway line, and then we'd end up in our own box again. So, I mean, there was no creativity or aspect to look forward. It was always look back, look sideways. And it was like seeing Harry Winks playing for Tottenham all them times, to be honest. It was sideways passing and no forward thinking.
I'd have used Højbjerg, but fair enough. Your Harry Winks analogy.
I was going for an England player, mate. I was trying to keep it themed towards it.
Fair enough. Look, as infuriating as it was, everybody was probably sitting there saying, "Why is he not making any substitutions? Why is he not making any substitutions?" And then in the last minute of the game, when we needed something, and fair play, finally, Kyle Walker had his first long throw headed out, and we got another chance. And it was just a classic throw in from the sideline, headed on, and then where's Jude Bellingham with a cheeky little bicycle kick, and then he screamed the house down at that moment, because it's not only a last minute goal, but also a last minute goal in that way. It's just the type of player he is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he's done it almost time and time again. You want in your big players to step up in the biggest moments and on the biggest stages, and I think Jude has done that almost pretty much throughout his career, really. And he affects games, and he affects big games, and I think that was the thing coming out of that moment as well. It's like, yeah, he's come in clutch for England in that moment, and yeah, a friend of mine actually FaceTimed me because he just got absolutely mental sort of in that moment. So yeah, it was just nice to see, because I don't think Jude's impact in the tournament as a whole has been what every England fan and every person watching was probably expecting. I think there's probably been other players, that younger players in particular, have probably outshone him in this tournament. So for him to come in that moment and produce in the way that, not in so much the bicycle kick, but to produce in that moment at that time, yeah, was a really good thing. And yeah, it just shows what a top sort of level player he is. And you hear pundits speak all the time about players at the real top end. They can be quiet for 89 minutes and then boom, there's a moment, and then teams go and win the game. So that was definitely Jude kind of in that moment.
Yeah, definitely. I put it up there with Ronaldo, Bale, Bellingham in terms of bicycle kicks at key moments.
Yeah.
But no, look, and that saved us. And actually, I was too busy doing something else when the extra time winning goal went in, because it was so fast after the break, Callum, wasn't it? But even though he doesn't play for us anymore, still good to see Harry Kane finally get a goal. In this again in this tournament.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, to be fair, we was really lucky to see Eze get the pre-assist, who we want. We saw Tony, who's been linked up with us to get the assist, and then one of our ex-players actually getting the winning goal. So there's all links to Spurs somewhere throughout all of that. But it was what we needed, because I thought we didn't deserve anything up until that point, and I still don't think we deserved to win that game. To be honest, I thought we were the worst of the two teams. So happy days to get Kane doing it. Kane did all right, but yeah, I think you could see by the end of the 90, he was shot. I even thought he pulled his hamstring while celebrating with Bellingham. By the look of it, to be honest, that's the problem.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, we went on and won the game, but man management again made me fear for my life. When he took quite a lot of players off, and then we decided to sit very, very deep in our own box and allow crosses from wide areas, come in. And luckily, we survived and we ended up winning the game. And it could all change from here, but it's just, in my eyes, like so disappointing that we're now in a quarter final, but yet we've not played anywhere near a team that looks good enough to win it. But yet we have every chance of doing that. Do you get what I mean? Like it's a crazy one, really. But anyway, only time will tell, and we can move on. But part of me was kind of thinking, oh well, if Southgate loses, then at least he'll get the sack, and maybe we'll get a better manager. But then I look at how England have been over the last 10, 15 years, and they probably won't pick the right manager anyway. So it doesn't really make too much difference. Right, let's talk transfer time, because that's why we're all here. So make sure get your comments in. We'll try and read out as many as we can. There's a lot of David's been talking a lot as we've been speaking about the England team and Gareth Southgate. And do you know what, David? I don't disagree with quite a lot of what you said, which is unusual for a Sunday night. But I'm sure only time will tell. Let's start, guys, by talking about Archie Gray. And I want to start by talking about Archie Gray because my notes on Archie Gray have changed throughout the day. So this morning, the notes were written that we were interested in Archie Gray and there was a £30 million valuation and so on. Then it turns out that Brentford have a deal agreed with him and he's going for a medical. Then my notes changed to that. Oh, Spurs have missed the boat again. And now it looks like we could be potentially looking to hijack this deal and sign what I believe could be an absolutely unbelievable young player for Spurs. But I want to kind of get, first of all, you guys' thoughts on it. Second of all, you guys' thoughts on how the negativity, as usual, is affecting our fan base. But I'll start with you, Wes, on the potential of signing Archie Gray. I actually texted a Leeds fan this week and I said, any chance we can have Archie Gray, we'll swap you Joe Rodon. And they said no. But, what do you think about this player?
Yeah, I think that's probably because the history with the Gray family and Leeds United in general, because I think it does go back a few kind of generations. But I am really, really excited by the prospect of Archie Gray. I think he was, young Championship Player of the Year last year, so that kind of says it all. Usually a centre mid by trade. Farker played him a lot at right back. So could really, really suit actually the way that we want to play and how Ange sets us up in possession in particular, with the fullbacks being really high in those sort of inside pockets, really comfortable on the ball, can drive forward, can beat a player, which is a rarity that you don't often see in central midfield players. But yeah, I just think he is going to be a fantastic player. And yeah, I was a little bit gutted when I saw that a deal was agreed with Brentford and he was travelling down there, and then all of a sudden, a bit like you, Luke, had to flip my mind round because I've seen that we could be in to hijack it. There's potential that he's on standby to do his Tottenham medical like today. But this signing also does kind of feel similar to almost like a club policy and a Levy type signing, because we've had these types of deals done previously. You look at Jed Spence being a prime example, and stuff like that, where we've bought young English players and then you're wanting them to do well. Jack Clark perhaps being another one, like, okay, we're buying these youngsters hoping that they can develop, but then, are they actually going to get the chance? But I think this one feels different because he's had season in the Championship and done really well. And I think, like I say, will really add to the way that we want to play.
Yeah, definitely, and I completely agree. You know, having a player who's a central player but also has played a lot of games at right back, you know, in a way where we play inverted fullbacks. And yeah, he's not going to come in and people are going to be annoyed, right? Because he's not going to come in and play central midfield. But I don't really, or just play like every single game from the start. But then he's also, in my opinion, at a much higher level than Jack Clark or somebody like that who we brought in before. He's able, I believe, with it by the end of the season to come in and play full time. It will be a bit part role this season, but you know, I genuinely believe he's probably one of the hottest prospects that there is out there, and it's just important that we get this deal over the line. But Callum, what do you believe on this narrative of like Spurs have got enough young players? Why are we signing more? That's what I read today.
It shouldn't matter how many players we have in that. We've got so many young players who are not English. That's the way that I look at it. That we've got so many youngsters who, from next year, I mean, when you look, Sarah and Udogie will be 21 and 22, so they'll be out of that young bracket now. They'll be older. Archie Gray's one of the best young prospects in English football at his age group at the moment. So it's the deals like this that, and I think I messaged Wes about it earlier, saying that literally these are the deals that we've missed out on in the past, or we've done well with in the past. So the narrative is always going to be set. People going, we need first team players, we need this, we need that. Well, Andrew said the academy have not been great the last couple of years, so we need to support that coming through. So if you've got the option to sign someone like Archie Gray, don't faff about with it and get the player when they're like this now, and don't wait until they go and become like Eze, Walton, Gahey, all with a price tag of 60 to 80 million now. So it's a no-brainer for me, mate. And if it means that we can get rid of Emerson Royale and have someone who can come in and support both midfield and right back and learn from them as well, and learn manage and build into a player, then it works. Whereas when you look at these other young players we've got previously, they have been sort of just bought left wing, right wing, no idea to it. This actually has a plan where we're looking at utility players who can play across a multitude of positions. It actually has merit to it compared to someone, if you go out and buy, I don't know, just say if we went out and bought Alex Scott right now, he wouldn't make sense to me in our team. Yeah, boyhood Spurs fan, but he would make sense in the positions where he's strong in. Whereas Gahey can play, well, not Gahey, Gray can play 6, can play 8, and he can play as an inverted fullback as well as backup to Porro. So I think it solves 2 to 3 issues with just one signing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you have to forgive me. The sun has decided to absolutely kill my. It's like the golden hour in my house, isn't it? Well, I was going to jump on David's comment actually. We're waiting for Edwards and Gray. I thought they were a comedy duo or a ventriloquist and dummy. That trophy cabinet will stay empty for another 10 years. Never mind, half. Well, I don't really have much to say about that. Anyone want to jump on that while I try and fix my camera?
No, not really.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. We'll move on. Look, you know, you can want decent young players and also, you know, still want to sign really good players, you know, first team footballers as well. At the end of the day, this kind of signing is going to happen under Ange Postecoglou. Like, he likes young players that he can mold, that he can develop as well. And, you know, he doesn't require £100 million players to be signed for the football club either. You know, look at some of the signings in the past that he has made and some of the players that he's wanted to sign. For example, he was dead set he wanted to sign Matoma for Celtic. They just couldn't afford to pay it. So don't question things until they've already happened and then allow them time to move on. You should never judge something by its previous experience. And just because you might have been scarred before doesn't mean you're always going to be scarred again. But anyway, while you're all here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Make sure you like the YouTube channel as well. But also, if you're listening on any podcast platform, make sure you click the follow button and leave a 5-star review. Right, let's move on Callum, to Jacob Ramsey. It's a strange one in my eyes. It's not something I'm thrilled with. But again, having seen him a few times for Aston Villa, I think he is a very versatile player. Like, is this is this again just us trying to tempt teams that needed to sell due to FFP, or do you see a lot of like traction in this deal?
It's got merits on both sides because obviously Villa needed to do their PSR, but I think they're quite sorted now that the Douglas Luiz deal has been done and they've done all their backroom academy dealings between them and Everton and them and Chelsea for all that stuff. So I think they're quite quiet on that one. But I think that there is some merit to it where Johan Lang knows him from his time at Villa, and I believe he was one of them that was advocating him to come through their youth academy. So there's merit to it. I think he fits a profile. I don't think it's necessarily about the player himself, but he fits that profile of like a versatile midfielder who can play a multitude of roles that Ange probably has given to Lang for. And it just happens to be like when Paratici was here that he went back to Juventus and got Kulusevski and Bentancur. I think it's a matter of if you know a player from them clubs, then it could work. And I saw a weird link this week that was kind of around that sort of ilk with Matt O'Reilly from Celtic, who is that sort of the same type of player. He's got that same sort of caliber to him, and it's someone that Ange knows. So potentially it could be like that. But the one thing with Ramsey that gets me is the injury record. He was out for nearly 24, 25 games this year. So it wasn't confident. I'm not too confident on that front, but he is only 20. But he's not someone that I'd immediately jump for, and it'd be my concern that he does play the same position as Eze as well. So is this Spurs seeing an opportunity that they can get a cheaper option out of it?
It's not
That's
much
a little
cheaper,
bit
is it?
younger.
50 million is not that much cheaper. You might as well just go for the.
Well, no, I know, but remember they said it was 50 million that's been touted about for Ramsey instead of just a straight on 50. So it's one of them where I think they've probably seen that Emre likes Lo Celso, so potentially there was some informal discussions, but I think it's a non-starter on this one, to be honest. It didn't pick up much traction after the initial reports.
No, fair enough. Just a quick one while we discuss this, Wes. David said, I want born winners who are ready to play now and take us up a level. And if not, win a trophy at least. Let us compete with the top sides. What I would like to know, David, while we discuss the Jacob Ramsey bit, is name me 3 born winners who you want Spurs to sign this summer, and we'll discuss it. Okay? Wes, talk to me about Ramsey. £50 million, according to Alistair Gold.
Yeah.
To me, it seems a little steep. But like, what are your thoughts on the valuation?
Yeah, I think the valuation, as you said there, does seem a bit much. But having said that, I think whenever I've watched Jacob Ramsey in an Aston Villa shirt, he has always impressed me. I think he's got some fantastic ability. And I think one of probably the biggest thing that Steven Gerrard actually did at Aston Villa, because I mean his time was an absolute shambles there. But one of the biggest things I think that he did was actually get him into the Villa team. And I wouldn't say he built the team around him, but Ramsey was a very key component in what Gerrard was trying to do at Villa. Unfortunately, with injuries, as Callum mentioned there, but I think there's a definite player in there 100%. But yeah, it just feels like 50 million, considering, you're paying extra 10 million, you get Eze. It does seem a little bit steep, but having said that, I would probably be more in favour of Jacob Ramsey turning up at Tottenham than potentially somebody like a Conor Gallagher, for example. I just think he's a player that can excite. He can go past players. I think he's still young enough that you can mould him into what you want him to be, but also what he's about already because he's got that Premier League experience. And I guess that's where the 50 million's coming in from, because he's played a certain amount of games in the Premier League already at such a young age. But yeah, I think, like I say, it'd be a player that I would, if we're able to get a deal done, I wouldn't be, opposed to that really happening, because yeah, I just think he's a cracking player, and I think he's got a little bit more about him than perhaps we've seen. I think he could do that box-to-box role really well, and is a very decent ball carrier as well in the midfield. So, yeah, I'm all for it, but I think there's a ceiling perhaps into his valuation, and I think 50 is a bit much.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more really on that statement. Let's move kind of on now to people who may be moving away from the football club, only on loan. But Callum, player that you know a little bit about, Jamie Donnelly, in talks with Oxford United over a season-long loan, according to BBC Sport. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, from my point of view, I'm happy for players to go out on loan. I'm happy for players to. I don't see too much of a first team, kind of game time that he might get. But what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's definitely the right time for him to go on loan to either League One or Championship. It's probably something that should have happened maybe last year, I would have said. But Oxford coming up, that's a very big risk. If you do send them straight to a newly promoted team, they're going to be probably fighting relegation. I'm not going to lie, Oxford don't really have the resources that you hope for in a team that can really push on. So they could try and get Premier League teams, youngsters, try and do that. The link that I'm more interested in with Donnelly is probably to Birmingham City with Chris Davis going down there. Obviously, Angie's ex-assistant, and he was apparently one of the ones that was advocating to push Donnelly into the first team. So I think potentially League One, do that for 6 months, then maybe consider it in January that if he is lighting it up, then you go Championship. Whereas if you look at something where Scarlet or Parrot went straight to the Championship, they didn't do very good previously. So maybe do a little bit of a stepping stone with it, like how Divine did last year as well. But no, I think it's a good option for him. There was obviously a second part of that report as well, I believe, where they said that teams were looking at Sonset Bell to buy him as well, and that's a non-starter for me. I can't see Spurs selling him. Yeah, him, Lancashire, Donnelly, Scarlett, they all had a cracking season, so I can't see them selling attacking players. If anything, there are a lot of other players they'd rather get off the books before even them to consider permanent moves, to be honest.
No, I get your point, and where it's interesting that that Callum's saying, look, rather he went to a team that's going to do well in League One than a team that's going to struggle, in the Championship. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's an interesting one because of, as Callum mentioned there, like Oxford obviously just coming up and just literally just lost their best player as well in Murphy. He's gone to Portsmouth, so that's really stung them big time. But I think Donnelly to the Championship for me makes probably more sense than him perhaps going to Birmingham in League One, because I think Birmingham are an absolute mess, to be honest. And I wouldn't go anywhere near that football club. Like, I want Chris Davis to do well, of course I do, but I just think the amount of pressure that he's under, and for his first managerial job, he's pretty much on a hide into nothing, really. Because Birmingham, at the size of the football club, they can't be in League One for too long. And I know there's been other clubs in League One that perhaps shouldn't have been in League One for as long as they have been, and it can be a tough league to get out of. So for me, Championship, but Oxford, I don't know if that's going to be the one club that I would go. That makes a bit of sense in terms of, stylistically. Don't think they're going to have as much of the ball. It almost feels like when we sent Skip out on loan to Norwich, and then Norwich went and bought Billy Gilmore. Well, it's completely different, because in the Championship, Norwich are having 60% of the ball. They're coming to the Premier League, they're having half of it if they're lucky. So, do you know what I mean? It kind of feels a little bit like that. But I think Donnelly as a character and his personality, I think he would do all right in Championship. I think he's just got that little bit of an edge about him compared to someone like a Scarlett in particular, who Scarlett, to me, kind of, he strikes me as a bit of a nice boy. Do you know what I mean? He's a nice kid. And, I think, even to be fair, Scarlett start of the season was struggling to get in the Ipswich team, and then he came back. So that loan didn't quite work out. I think he had a half decent loan at Portsmouth in League One. So I think we've got a clutch of young players at the moment. You throw your Alfie Devines in there, as Callum mentioned, Lancashire, Snoop Bell. We've got a clutch of these youngsters that we need to either look after and get them out on loan, or if we're going to have them in our squad, then they've got to start getting some minutes, whether that be in the Europa League in particular, perhaps group stage. But then it depends on how we're going to view the Europa League this season as a club. Are we going to be actively taking it seriously and look to be in it to win it, or are we going to see it as a bit of a competition where we can rotate and get players minutes here and there? So I think that's the bit for me. But I think Donnelly to the Championship as a loan in itself makes more sense than perhaps a few others, because like I said, I think he's just got something about him. He's got that little bit of arrogance. I think he'd do all right in the Championship. Maybe for me, someone like a QPR wouldn't be a bad shout. Obviously, we're playing him in pre-season, so we can drop him off and leave him there after we've played them. And I think that the manager and the way that Cifuentes has got QPR playing, considering the absolute shambles he got left with, he did an amazing job to keep them up, because he's got no money to play with either. And I think, stylistically, it kind of would make a bit more sense. You could have Donnelly in that 10 position, or even maybe as a number 9, competing with Lyndon Dykes at QPR. So that's what I would personally go for. But I don't see Oxford as a natural fit, unfortunately.
Yeah, I get your point, in terms of Donnelly and Scarlett. Scarlett seems like a much smaller, I don't know if he is, right? But I feel like he's got like a much smaller presence and probably a much nicer person, rather than I feel from what I've seen from Donnelly. He seems taller, broader, and therefore a bit more of a bite in him. But quick question for you, because I don't actually know the answer to this, but do clubs actively say, okay, so are Spurs actively going, right, these are the 5 clubs that we would like him to go to, or are we waiting for offers to come in? And are we then saying, do you want to go to this club, or are we saying that's not going to work for you and how we want your future to progress?
I think it's probably like option D, all of the above. So I think you would probably say, in an ideal world, you'd have like a person who would be in charge of the loans system, like you see it at clubs all the same thing. Like David Weir in particular was loans manager at Brighton, so his then task is to sort out loans for 18s, 23s players, that kind of thing. So I think you'd probably have in mind, okay, we've got this particular player here. Stylistically, or we would want him to go out on loan. These are the clubs that we would have in mind who play a similar way to us. And then somebody might get in contact that way. You might just go, look, let's just make him available for loan, see what comes in, and then let him pick. Or you go, right, we're going to put you out on loan to this specific club because, and it's that bit because at the end that would then make the player go, right, I'm going here because the manager, like stylistically, again, manager is this person. We have a good relationship. I know him already. That's fine. Or you go, right, stylistically, they play the same way as Tottenham. So it's not going to be that massive difference then when I come back to Tottenham. But then sometimes you get loans with a view then to just get rid of the player as well. And I think we've had that obviously with the likes of Roden and Spence and Reguilon. We're shipping them out on loan effectively, to put them in the shop window to try and get somebody to buy them. Unfortunately, they've been shit, so no one's really bought them. The loans thing and transfers in particular can work in a million and one kind of different ways. So it's option D, all of the above.
No, thanks, mate. Just a quick one. I'll let you talk about this, Callum, if you want. David has come back to us with the players that he wants. Remember the question. I'm not taking the piss here, David. I'm genuinely curious about this. So I want born winners signed who are ready now to take us to the next level. And if not, win a trophy, at least let us compete with other top sides. And David says, I would like Chiesa and Davies and David or even Nielsen from FC Porto. Talk to me about your thoughts above.
So we got Chiesa from Juventus. So he's doing well for Italy at the moment. He does seem... Well, he'd be an upgrade on Kulu and Brennan Johnson, I think, definitely. He's got a lot more end product that I've seen, at least. So, a good, tricky winger. but I don't know whether he suits Ange's style, to be honest. It'd be quite like Kulusevski, where he likes to just cut in and not really take on the man sort of thing. Guessing Alphonso Davies from Bayern. Yeah, good luck trying to get him.
So, yeah.
He's pretty much Real Madrid's like future left back, isn't he? Their heir apparent for that, if they can actually nick him away. I mean, yeah, class signing if you can get him. But I mean, I struggled to sign him on bloody Football Manager. I think Wes probably does as well. So I mean, yeah, good luck getting Daniel Levy to even sanction that one, because I think even with 1 year on his contract left, he's been touted around for like 40 to 60 million. And all that for it. So if you do get him in, he's exactly the same age as Udogie, and they're both vying to be first team left backs. So I don't think that would work. I'm guessing Jonathan David
I believe,
from Lille. Yeah, that's hands down, and he actual proven striker, can definitely do something. I think me and Wes and Winnie both agreed last weekend we'd take him in a heartbeat.
Would you call him a born winner though? That was the question. Like,
no, I don't think so. I don't think Lille have won sweet fuck all in the French league because no one wins anything unless it's PSG or Lyon. So,
and I'm taking the piss, but I would like. I think Jonathan David. I think he would be really good. I think he's diverse. I wasn't in last week, but I think he's versatile. I think he would fit in multiple positions. He would be able to flow well in this team. I think he's perfect signing.
Yeah,
but he's not a born winner in my eyes.
Yeah, that's one of them that's opportunity buy, I think, for definite. But he is 24, so he could be someone who could improve. He does well for Canada, but Canada only plays Copa America. They never get through to the World Cup, so I don't think we'll see much else from him. And Evan Nilsson, that's the Brazilian striker, 22, 23. With him, I don't honestly know enough about him. I know he's quite good on FIFA if you can get him
I signed him on FM.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can get him on that.
This is like last year's back up to Harry Kane.
He's not bad, but he's a Brazilian striker, and that's, from what I have seen of him, he's quite similar in that he's not an out-and-out striker. He's a versatile one like Richarlison, and he can hold up the ball, but he's a tricky sort of player. So I'd rather steer clear of Brazilian forwards, to be honest, if I can get my... If it was my own personal opinion, I think they're too difficult to get up to speed in the Premier League, to be honest, to what you want them to be. I don't think he'd suit us, to be honest, especially not an Andrew style. But Wes, do you know anything more about him, sort of thing?
Not Evan Nilsson. No, I know he can go for an absolute mint on Football Manager. But that's about it. Jonathan David, yeah, we covered that last week. And yeah, don't think he's a born winner, so to speak. Alphonso Davies has won things, but again, mentality-wise, wouldn't class him as a born or natural winner. In the same breath, I would also probably say similar to Chiesa in that sense as well. But then we've tried almost with the born winners with our managers, didn't work. We've signed players who have tried to have been there, seen it, and done it in Perisic, who for me was wicked, but the transfer at the time didn't work for Spurs. So yeah, pretty. It doesn't suit the club's policy, agenda, whatever you want to call it, to go and get the ready-made players like for the here and now, to then try and catapult us to the next level. It just doesn't happen. So yeah, I think any Spurs fan needs to kind of almost forget that we're going to be in for the born winners that have been there, seen it, and done it. Like there was, for example, Chiellini, Bonucci. They're two world-class centre halves. They're your natural born winners. Don't think we would be in the market for those types of players. Personally, which is a shame because I think finance wise we've got the capability to do it, but I just don't think it's something that the club are ever gonna go for or ever entertain, really.
I mean, no, fair enough. And honestly, thank you, David, for putting them in, because it is good to discuss. Like, I genuinely can't think of anyone who I would put in a natural born winner category that I think Spurs should go out and sign, that we could go out and, do you know what I mean? Go out and sign.
I mean,
other than
when you think about it, though, born winner is such a vague term, because I mean, could you say a born winner? Oh yeah, well, Leicester have just won the championship, so are all their players born winners. Have Southampton
Can
have
we
just
get
come
Harry
up?
Winks back?
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, there was Dewsbury Hall from Leicester who is actually quite a good player and all that. Who's going to Chelsea? Who's I would actually say probably better than Gallagher. To be fair, to be honest, and he could be one of them, but it's such a vague term. Do you say that, oh yeah, because you've won a trophy in the Timbuktu League in Malta or Gibraltar or something like that, because you've got some medals, you're a born winner ready for the Premier League? There's hardly any winners in the Premier League because it's either City or Liverpool that have won it. Most of their teams have either recycled, or you've got United with the FA Cup. Could you really class half the United players as winners? To be honest, half of them are just lazy, bone idle, don't want to play for the manager, and doesn't want that. So do you just go and say, "Oh, Rashford's won the FA Cup, so he must have been a ready-made winner. So we'll go and get Rashford."
I personally wouldn't mind going and getting Rashford, to be quite honest. But
okay, bad example. Trust you to get
no,
bloody
you know
happy
what?
over that.
People would throw their toys out of the pram, but I wouldn't be against it whatsoever.
He's homegrown. Guess
Yeah,
that works.
I just think under a like a new manager, give him a new like lease of life. I think he could come back to the Rashford that we know is quality. But moving on, quick one that I want to discuss with you, and then I've got two interesting things to finish with. But quick one on the rumours that Galatasaray are interested in a season-long loan with a buy option for Rodrigo Bentancur. I like that clubs are interested in signing our players, but it doesn't mean they're going to sell them, right, Wes?
Yeah, especially the Uruguayan Moussa Dembele. Not a chance he's leaving. Yeah, baffling, to be honest. I mean, fair play to Galatasaray for thinking, let's just try it, see what happens. Phone up when you're drunk or whatever. Phone up Levy when Turkey must have won or something in the Euros, and then they went, right, let's go. But yeah, I think Bentancur is just going to be so important to us this coming season. I think we saw flashes of it last season, especially in the Aston Villa game, in particular, where I think everybody would probably agree that he looked back to his sort of best before his ACL injury, and then he got chopped again. But yeah, I think Bentancur is just going to be so vital to what we're going to try and achieve, and what we want to achieve this coming season. So yeah, it's a non-starter, and yeah, I think Levy's going to probably laugh him out of the conversation, really.
Like a late night booty call or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, literally.
Callum, what I want to talk to you about is, and it's not anything about Spurs, but it's about Anthony Gordon potentially moving to Liverpool, right? And I've got quite a few mates of Liverpool fans who are actually quite buzzing about the idea of Anthony Gordon moving to Liverpool. But then remember when Spurs signed Richarlison and they
Daniel
were also
Levy bargain bucket. Yeah, the
they were
bargain
also
bucket
looking
deal.
at buying Anthony Gordon, and what a waste of money that would have been. And yeah, he was scraping the barrel for signings. Isn't it interesting how different fan bases view the exact same signing? That actually Liverpool fans are excited about a good player that Anthony Gordon is. I'm just curious to hear your thoughts.
It's an interesting one because obviously when we was trying to look at him, he had started throwing his toys out the pram at Everton and started being an arse and everything like that. But when he has played for Newcastle this season, he's looked good. He does look good as a player. He has something about him, and when you've got someone that's tricky and complex, it's a very low quite a low trait that a lot of footballers have. So he's definitely a very interesting player, and I think he could do a job for Liverpool. It's just that who do you oust from that Liverpool front line for it when you've got Jota, Salah, Diaz?
People are saying he could play instead of Diaz. That's what I'm hearing. They're not that happy with how Diaz is playing or how his dad's acting.
Well, yeah, that's another one of them agent talks. I think his agent is his dad or something like that, or at least got links to their base. But no, I mean, if you can do that and get Gordon for him, then that'd be good. But then obviously Gakpo's had a really good Euros for the Netherlands as well. So they've got like 6 or 7 players already to play in that front, say 3 that they play, and then they've got. What they got? They've got Diaz, Jota, Nunez, Salah. Who else is there? Gakpo. You've got Curtis Jones who can play there, but I don't rate Curtis Jones as far as I can throw him, to be honest. So it's whether that Liverpool will cough up that money, because from what I read, I think they said that the link has been dropped. It was just that there was informal talks that took place, and there was seeing about who Liverpool could buy to balance out the PSR stuff for Newcastle, and it kind of run aground a little bit. But no, there's a lot worse players out there than Gordon, and I think it's been criminal how Southgate hasn't utilised him and Palmer a lot more this Euros. I mean, has he even gotten on the pitch yet?
Yeah, he also fell off his bike, didn't he?
Well, that
Injured at the moment.
apparently Trippier injured his leg playing cricket as well the other day, so that didn't go down well either, to be honest. But
yeah, definitely. You did well to avoid the question that was actually based on our fan base, saying that it was a shit signing, and now other fan base saying it's a good signing. But fair enough. I like.
Well, I was going to let you do it. I was going to let.
We have got an election coming up, so maybe it'd be good to run for some kind of government. But anyway, Wes, last question, and it actually goes on to the back of what Callum was saying about this PSR. What is PSR compared to FFP? Is it not all the same thing? Why do they keep calling it different things? That's not the question.
No, so financial fair play, from my understanding, is so clubs can then spend a certain percentage of their turnover and can lose up to, I think it's 115 million, I think it is, or something like that, across 3 seasons. PSR is your profit and sustainability. So I think that was brought in to kind of alleviate any situations that we've had in terms of a Macclesfield, a Bury, etc. But it's an absolute fucking nightmare, to be honest, because now all of a sudden, I think it's going to be ridiculously hard now for academy graduates to really make themselves almost like a one club player. I know loyalty in football is not what it used to be, and I get that, but I'm going to use Conor Gallagher as an example because come through the ranks at Chelsea, yes, had a few loans, but is kind of like a Chelsea boy and is a Chelsea fan. So he probably wants to stay and play for Chelsea for the rest of his life, but he's probably not going to get that opportunity now because Chelsea are probably looking to sell him or move him on because they need to comply with PSR, profit and sustainability. So it looks better on their balance sheets when they then submit their accounts because they can say, right, well, we've got X amount in profit and it's pure profit when it comes to academy players because they've not cost them anything coming in to the building. And then, yeah, it's just annoying from that point of view. And then you're seeing all these deals that are happening between Everton, Villa, Chelsea, and it's like you're just sort of helping. It feels like you're lending your mate a few quid so he can go on a night out, but then it's like getting circulated across a few mates. Do you know what I mean? Or it's like you're buying around the drinks on a night out, and it's like, oh, it's your turn to buy it. No, it's yours, and it's yours. So, yeah, it's annoying and frustrating. So there are 2 different sides to it. FFP, I think clubs have just got their heads round and are trying to do what they can with it. I think they actually want to up how much you can lose because of inflation within
I've heard about this. But one of my mates is a Newcastle fan, and he keeps talking about inflation and how teams will be able to survive.
So PSR's the complete. Well, I wouldn't say opposite, but it's. I think it was brought in to aid FFP, and then actually it's now like massively separate, which is annoying and frustrating for football clubs because they can't. Basically, there's no point in almost having academies because you're just going to bin off your players at some point anyway. So you might as well bin them off at like 18 and sell them for an absolute mint.
Yeah, it's only because it brought. I've been looking at this with a friend of mine actually, and we've been like texting each other every single time a club does business together. And there was another one today where looks like Newcastle are selling Elliot Anderson for £35 million to Nottingham Forest, and then they're going to get a player from Nottingham Forest as well. So like it's all done to like. And it's funnily enough, this was done when the deadline for it's tonight, and I just want to know like you guys' thoughts, because I've been talking with my mate, the Newcastle fan that I just mentioned this week, about it. And of course, he believes that it's all fair, and and that it's the Premier League's issue for putting this in place. It's not like his club can't afford to sign players. They're the richest club in the world, blah, blah, blah. But then my argument is always, well, what about clubs like Spurs? What about clubs who've deliberately set themselves up to be in a position whereby they don't fail to comply with financial issues, where they've set themselves up with contracts, long-term contracts with some of the biggest brands in the world, some of the best music artists in the world, some of the best events that you could possibly get, to build in an extra revenue stream, to mean that actually they are then able to spend, and they don't have to not have to worry, but they don't have to, fail to comply with these things. But yet then people can come in from, these oil states where they're looking to sports wash as much as they can, and they're allowed to spend unlimited sums of money. Like, is what we've got the right thing? I'll come to you first, Callum. Or is there something different needed, or would you scrap it altogether? Like, what's your thoughts as a Spurs fan?
So
bit highbrow.
Pardon?
A bit highbrow, this conversation, isn't it?
Well, it's definitely very political. Let's put it that way, and it's financial. But no, I mean, from a Spurs business point of view, it shows that we are run as a business. We're not run as a football club. We don't think about spending to get money on the players, everything like that. It's definitely about the overall picture of Tottenham and the entertainment arena.
Well, surely they all fold into one another, right? Because those revenues that you're getting should then, in hand, go into the footballing side of things.
Yeah, I know, but I think from whatever we see, that there's always a limit to what Spurs are willing to reinvest back into the club for it, because we say that we get all of this money from having Lady Gaga perform there. We get £10 million for a concert. We have all these beer cups that get stuff from the bottom, everything like that. And it's about the experience. But when you look at it, we're always a little bit short of where we think we could have gone. Could we do another 5 million there? Could another 2 million there do it? And yeah, to have it's a self-sustainable business. We are one of the only clubs in the Premier League now that doesn't have a consortium or a group that are running us, like the Americans, the Saudis, the Abu Dhabi group, the Qatari groups, everything like that. So we are one of the only ones that still produce our own money. We have our own shares. We have our own people running it under ENIC, but it's such a difficult one, because we know that Levy's only going to spend as much as he wants to in there and still make sure he gets his £6 million bonus at the end of the year, because that doesn't count towards PSR or anything like that. But when you look at the way that the clubs do it, they do factoring, they do cost analysis, they do benefit analysis on it as well. And Chelsea have managed to play around this because they've got so many charges against them that it's going to take so long for the Premier League to get them. The same with City. Newcastle were caught out, but have managed to do straight profit with selling Anderson. Everton have done the same, and with their impending takeover, their actual PSR debt was bought up by who's the guy from Rome, the new owner of Roma, who's just bought them as well. So he's managed to wipe that out. All of this can work around. There's loopholes in it still. FFP got made solid. People kept it under control. Now PSR's come in. All the same loopholes that were in FFP that were all eradicated are now being exposed more. And it's only this mini deadline day, which we're having today for tomorrow, that we're actually going to see whether people do fail it or not. But at the moment, to have a club like Spurs, I'd rather us be self-sufficient, not reliant on a state, but I still want our club to go a little bit further. And unfortunately, I don't think we ever will under ENIC. So it's PSR is just another thing that's been brought out to control financial regulation, and the way that it's put in place, there is room for evolution on it, like the guys said, where you'll have a percentage of your income that you can spend on transfers. You'll have a percentage of that you're then allowed to make a loss on. And I think it's 105 million over 3 years that you can make said losses on. Well, Spurs have turned a profit ever since we got the new stadium, and yet we've been out in and out of Europe, ping pong club, up and down the league with big managers being paid off and players being paid off for contracts, and yet we still won't invest enough money in it. But it's all right though. We'll just go and build a new hotel next to the stadium, which will then be classed as pure profit because it's an asset instead of anything else.
Yeah, fair enough. The funniest one for me, Wes, is Lewis Dobbin, £9 million for him. Well, that's class. When you can sell a player like him. I remember on Football Manager, I was Barnsley and I signed him. Like, what a player he was for me. But, like, that's the limit that we're looking at. We're not looking at a £9 million player. I got him on a free transfer, I think.
He scored one goal for the Everton first team, and he's made like 12 appearances. But then, what is it? Kellyman from Aston Villa, who went to Chelsea, and Hutchinson that's just going to Ipswich as well. Both 20 million. They've made like less than 10 or 15 appearances for their actual clubs. It is ridiculous.
What they've done is they've all gone on a group chat and they've said, "Hey up, boys, I've got a solution to this. Let's just sell each other players, and then we'll do it that way." And they're like, "Oh, sounds great. Is this legal?" And they're like, "Well, it's not illegal. So, like, let's just keep doing it." But really quickly, Wes, what's your thoughts on that whole thing?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit in agreement with Callum there in the sense that I'm glad that we're not at panic stations like now to have to sell a player so then we're not getting deducted points or anything like that. I think Newcastle's situation is really interesting. Obviously, you mentioned Elliot Anderson going to Forest, but then also I think is it Jacob Minter or something like that. I don't know.
Going to Brighton,
yeah, he's going to Brighton for like 30 odd million. See, then I think that's where the whole issue then with Gordon has gone really quiet because Newcastle now are under like no obligation or under any pressure then to sell him or Bruno Guimaraes or Isak because they've then made their money elsewhere by selling off some other players. But yeah, I think from a PSR point of view, it does also then it feels like it's the so-called big six trying to protect each other, and then Chelsea just gone, yeah, sod it, we'll just splash money left, right, and centre because they ain't got a clue what they're doing. But I think it's also quite interesting at a club like City, because everybody kind of moans at City and goes, "Oh, they're with the transfers and things like that." But you could argue the last few years in particular, City have actually made a profit. So City will spend big on maybe one or two players, but they'll still turn out a profit. So they're quite good at actually selling their academy players. Like I think they sold about 3 or 4 to Southampton. So they sold Bazunu for like 15 million. Idozi was, I think, 12. Shea Charles, I think, was 10. So yes, I think they caught Southampton at a good time. Southampton were changing their recruitment policy and how they were going to do things. And then I think it was Jason Wilcox who went from City to Southampton. So he's just bought some players that he knows, who he feels that can develop, and then Southampton will sell them on. But yeah, PSR just seems really messy. And it's something that, I'm getting a bit bored and fed up of hearing because it's like, just get on with it. Like FFP was enough, and is enough really. So I don't understand why we need kind of something else in place. But I like the fact that we're never caught up in this, with FFP, with PSR, we do things in a specific way. And I don't think I don't think a lot of fans appreciate it at times. Because I think we all want the best for the football club. Of course we do. We want us to be successful. We want us to win trophies, but I think there's a way in which you go about doing it. And I think the fact that we're doing it in this sort of way, I think is probably better in the long run, because put it this way, like I don't see Spurs being in trouble. Like I think the club will be there for, my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like where there's other clubs that you go, if your owners pull out tomorrow, you are fucked. Like you are finished. So
Birmingham
I
think
City.
from that, so like I think from that longevity point of view, it's obviously quite a good thing.
No, definitely. And that's a nice way to wrap up the show. Well, I thank everybody that's been in the chat. It's been a little bit quiet today. There's been a lot of you there, but I'm not against you. But if you ever got anything to say, don't forget you can always put your comments and thoughts in the chat. and get back to us. But as always, don't forget to hit the like button on the video. That's really important. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We would like to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year if possible. So all of you listening on podcast platforms, the moment that you're finished, go over to YouTube, type in Park Lane Podcast, and just click the subscribe button. It's free to do so, and it really, really does help us out. But Callum, thank you for joining us again, mate. Good to have us all back. And actually, Wes, the new part of the show. It's good to have you on a regular basis. But Callum, how can everyone find you?
No, it's great to be back as always, mate. So thanks very much as always. Callum Stubbs 97 on Twitter. So yeah, just have a row with me, please. Just make my week interesting. It'd be fun.
Amazing. And Wes, it's good to have you on for the second week running. How can everyone find you?
Yeah, I don't know how long my streak of shows is going to continue because we decided to finish in Europa League spots, etc. So depending on some kickoff times, may not be able to come on, but I'll try as much as I can this season. But yeah, I usually do a massive outro, but at this point I'm just there like, just type my name in somewhere, you'll fucking find me on a platform. So yeah, that's kind of it really, Luke, to be honest.
Amazing. It's Wezo10 on Twitter, the non-official or the unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account or something. Yeah,
that's the one. That's the one. That's the one.
Perfect. And if you're interested, you can find me at Luke_Park Lane. More importantly, search Park Lane Podcast on any social media platform, and you will find us. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, do all that good stuff, and we'll see you probably Tuesday night for some more FIFA action. But keep your eyes on Twitter for that, and we'll be back this Sunday, or next Sunday, I should say, for more Park Lane Podcast. Until then, massive come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on,